In today's video, I want to talk about 3 of my current favorite projects going on in the new construction world around the Sarasota Greater Metro. And the reason that I individually singled these 3 out is because they just mean more versus just random neighborhoods. These all have kind of a smattering platter of collided value. Like they're master plan, there is builder variety versus a single, they're amenity-rich environments. They're in geographies, they're all materially different from each other, but individually all have separate meaning to the landscape of what Sarasota, Florida is, especially moving forward. So just in November 2024, I think these are a great talking head to explain what's going on across the board in the very vast new construction and ever-changing world, if that makes any sense. So I really hope you enjoyed today's take. We're gonna hop right in. My name is Adam Hancock. This is the Florida Relocation Guide, your smartest way to buy, sell, and or invest all of Southwest Florida, especially Sarasota and Manatee greater area. And without further ado, let's get started. All right, real quick game plan for today's video. Typically, when I talk about like a list of 3 to 5 communities, I would go in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, and kind of discuss all the different things that are important and what they mean. In today's video, I thought it would be a little bit more valuable to go categorical. So I have 4 main subject matters and then a bonus one that has kind of a catch-all of some other things I think are important right now that I'm gonna walk through one by one and talk about all 3 of these developments within each of those individual categories. I just think it'll add a little bit more texture and context to what's happening right now. So I hope you like it, and let's kick it off with number 1. All right, number 1 on my list is one of my perennial favorites, and that is geography. So the 3 communities we're focusing on today's video, one called Palmera, one called North River Ranch, and another one called Seaflower. One of the really interesting things about these locations, none of them are in the middle of Sarasota. They're all kind of on the fringes, but in different areas. So it almost forms a kind of a triangle if you mapped them out. But what I really, really like about that idea is kind of a value play. The elephant in the room, the obvious one, is that you have 3 new things to pick from, right? So in my opinion, abundance never hurts a incoming buyer as far as like their options that they have at their disposal. But by these 3 being like not completely binary, they're not black and white, it's a little bit more in the eye of the beholder. So they all have their own merits, but they're different from each other, and not everyone's gonna agree on what those merits are. So that is going to create advantages, is if you value something left and another person values something right, then there's going to be cost advantages. There's going to be individual new construction intricacies at one neighborhood that can be that kind of neighborhood because it's based here and not another place. There could be coastal advantages for a coast that you might like that someone else doesn't like that particular part of the coast or where it's based in town. And there's all these kind of like vague layers to it because not everyone's going to agree on any of these 3. And we'll explain that a little bit more in a moment, but that's kind of my overarching umbrella of where I think geography sits in this conversation. And I want to break down each of their individual locations and talk about their uniqueness on their own outright. First up is Palmera. Palmera is located inside a master plan community called Wellen Park. Wellen Park is located south of the Sarasota, Florida city limits and basically gives you access to the 4 corners. So you're like southern Venice, western Northport, northern Englewood, and then you're below South Sarasota. So it's an interesting portal into town, 33 miles-ish below downtown Sarasota, but different than a lot of master plan was built in the past. A lot of stuff goes east. Lakewood Ranch is up here, downtown Sarasota's here, Wellen Park's down here, but east is where the land's at. You go to the right of the coast, you have space, all that kind of stuff. Wellen Park kind of like changed a little bit of what has historically been done. So in essence, what that means is that you have a little bit more relative coastal proximity. It's not right on top of it, but if you go to this part of the state, as you go down, it's a lot easier to stay close to the water than it is to go in this direction. So where most of the communities in Wellen Park will be 20-ish minutes, depending on traffic and the road patterns and the future development, to really 4 beaches. You have Minnesota Key, you have Venice, you have Casperson, you have Brohart Beach. A lot of the other new construction and master plan in the state of Florida, the conversation really starts at 20 minutes and further. Venice is a little bit more laid back. It gave this kind of old Florida coastal thing, but master plan. It's the combination that's unique. It's not the separation of it. It's new construction in groups, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but a bunch of communities that are intentionally planned with downtowns and amenities and all that kind of stuff. It's also coastal. Typically, there's not a lot of room for that beyond like maybe Seaside and Pensacola, and you have Nocatee a little bit in the Jacksonville area. But the reason that things go east is because there's space. The reason that they're not west is because there's typically not space. Wellen Park was one of the first adventures to give you that juxtaposition of an option if you just had to break it down on like an elevator pitch style. Next up is North River Ranch, which is located in a city called Parrish, Florida. And this is where you really, if you want to talk about bookends, Parrish, Florida up here, first one we talked about way down here. Parrish is also about 28 to 30 miles one way to downtown Sarasota, as is Wellen Park, but in opposite directions. So it's just a kind of a different environment. Parrish goes more into a inland northeast of town conversation. This one kind of has a history and a benefactor. So where Parrish, Florida really got on the map, for lack of better words, was on a piggyback on Lakewood Ranch, Florida. Lakewood Ranch is the #1 multi-generational master plan community. It's 33,000 plus acres. You could write Lakewood Ranch on your address. It is a city on its own outright. Well, if Lakewood Ranch is 12 miles one way northeast of downtown Sarasota, Parrish is 14 miles further. So a lot of people that at the very least use Lakewood Ranch as a conduit to learn about the town. A lot of people that liked Lakewood Ranch, liked things about it, all of that kind of thing, got their head fully around it. Well, Parrish got the benefit of the ripple into a little bit further direction. There was many sister communities with Neil and a bunch of other builders, Taylor Morrison, that went up there. This was a way that, in essence, that you could, get the same house for $150,000 cheaper. You could get 500 square feet extra for the same price. You could get the pool that you couldn't get in Lakewood Ranch. You could just make choices like that. Inland affordable retirement if the Del Webb and Lakewood Ranch or Crestwind with Coulter was too expensive, something like that. That's not all this is. And North River Ranch is just a really amazing example of this. That's not all Parrish is to Lakewood, but that to me is a lot of the reason that it got in vogue in the first place. And then it's blossoming into now like borderline a young professionals interesting area. People are like, oh, well, actually Parrish doesn't just go northeast, it kind of hooks. A lot of Lakewood Ranch, there isn't that much closer to like Anna Maria Island and Lido Beach than parts of Parrish. Oh, it's also 15 minutes closer to the Tampa airport, and I can kind of access downtown Tampa too. So a lot of people are starting to kind of see those benefits too. But in my opinion, they didn't see those benefits first. They saw Lakewood Ranch, found their way into Parrish, and then said, oh, what else can I lean into that maybe other people don't value? So that's how I'd sum up that one, and I think it just is only going to get more interesting from here. And lastly, we are talking about our unicorn of the bunch, and that is a community called Seaflower. This one is very, very unique and very new, and I'm going to really need to try to contextualize that the more we go throughout the video. But from a location standpoint alone, this literally looks like paradise on earth. It's surrounded by more blue than it's not. You're in the western Bradenton mainland area. So where this is going to be situated is above downtown Sarasota, slightly above the airport and the IMG Academy area, which is going to put you basically, if you're looking at the Barrier Islands, it's adjacent to the very northernmost tip of Longboat Key, the Barrier Islands. It's about 8 miles long, half in Sarasota County, half in Manatee. But you're at the northern part of that, which means you're slightly below Bradenton Beach out to Anna Maria Island. You kind of sit right here. So you have bay, you have Barrier Islands, you have Gulf, and it's just 3.2 miles one way because you're not only close to the water, but you're close to accessible water with the functional bridges there. Just really, really unique spot. And if I said Wellen Park was close to the water, this makes that look not close to the water at all. A lot of these things have catches with them, right? Like how the heck would you be able to do this all of a sudden when we haven't done it in the past? How would this be available in all this new construction? Historically, if you've ever messed around with Western Bradenton, if you tried to get near the water and you went north of downtown, not south, it's tricky. This is an old area. If you're familiar with Bradenton from Lakewood Ranch, the suburb part, this is the opposite of that. This area has existed for a very long time, had a big evolution, and it's just not turnkey. You're gonna have neighborhoods that existed forever. You're gonna have brand new stuff like IMG Academy and Aqua and some of the Palmasola area around stuff that's like modular homes and random mix of neighborhoods, and people go to spend their money there, go to relocate there, and they're attracted to more affordable versions of getting near the water, right? Because downtown Sarasota is tricky. Downtown Sarasota is 3 miles from the water at corner Siesta Key and Lido. To live right there, like west of the trail or slightly east of the trail, even if you had all the money in the world, just availability-wise, it's not a slam dunk. So a lot of times people will go north versus south and mess around with the Manatee River, brackish water, and just trying to find access to what they're looking for by moving to Florida. And this one, they see the prices, they're like, what the heck's going on? You know, and they're trying to navigate that. But where people fail in that argument is that it doesn't look like Lakewood Ranch. It doesn't look like it does online. And if you're out of state, it's very hard to understand. My premise from growing up, you know, lifelong in Sarasota and how people think of it, I think people are a little too harsh, a little too biased on going north. But what Seaflower would give someone relocating from out of state, it gives you more than one nice community around stuff where you're like, I don't know if I could do $1 million in Aqua and then outside my walls are this. For right or wrong, good or bad, depending on your view of gentrification, Seaflower is going to build kind of like a mini city of sorts, which is going to soften the blow and let you enjoy this location and this geography a little bit more without being as concerned with comparable values, long-term health, fiscally of your purchase, all this kind of thing. Because they're going to go 1,500 plus acres, I think, just to start in the first phase. There's multiple builders, and it's not just a neighborhood. You know, it's multiple little villages around commercial space and around retail. And once you get over to that area, it's just going to feel like a nice part of town. So I think at a certain point, with all the John Ringling owned property that exists around the airport, in and out of it, Indian Shore, like Sapphire, Indian Beach, all that area, I think it's going to feel eventually, hopefully, like an extension of that area. And that's going to really open up possibilities of bayside living in areas that people wouldn't deem as valuable as 2 miles south. So Seaflower is going to open that up because just like Lakewood Ranch, you get near the area. Like, it doesn't feel like a neighborhood. It just feels like a part of town. If they do that over here, then it's going to really, really be interesting, I think, in the future. And if people could get their head around that a little bit more, and if that comes to fruition, then the cost savings versus being a stone's throw south is going to be monumental, I think. Excited to share a little bit more about that, but that's my consensus on location across the three. Okay, major category number 2, we're talking master plan itself. And I'm not going to get super crazy here because I want to get into the meat of like the builders and the homes and the amenities, etc. But high level overview because I think it's that important. I mentioned throughout the video thus far that all 3 of these communities are part of some sort of greater concept. They're built into the fabric of a incremental rollout in their own outright. And they're all a little bit different, but they all mean more than just one neighborhood with a nice neighborhood pool and a pickleball court and all that kind of thing. And I really think this is the wave of the future. I have found a real pattern of people, especially relocating, looking at new construction. They expect a little bit more when they leave their individual home, they leave their individual neighborhood. They want to be a part of a bigger thing. And in a lot of ways that takes pressure off of your own house and your own neighborhood because you can view the lifestyle and just the general appeal of your value and everything in and out of your neighborhood. Communal amenities, commercial environments, social environments. You know, when you relocate from out of state, and you're an empty nester, something like that, even if you know a few people, it's almost like jumping into a whole new thing. There could be like-minded people, but it's hard to identify them. And so people are looking for an environment where it creates kind of a conducive atmosphere that's more cohesive of the whole picture. So you could have, 13 other neighborhoods that all kind of collide together for, commercial shopping centers and downtowns, et cetera. And then you also can go into the regular town of the macro area itself. But back in the day, if you wanted a non-chain restaurant, you wanted to really do anything cool, go to any major place, you always had to go into town. And now these places are building these mini towns, which the more time goes on, the smarter they get, the intentionality gets really amazing. And if you're coming into town as a new person, I think the variety of allowing you to say, like, I like the whole area, and then let me see what I can do within it. That abundance is now creating a really productive environment, I think, for a buyer. All right, if we kind of go back in that same order quickly here, I mentioned that Palmera, our first community, is built in a master plan area called Wellen Park. Wellen Park's probably the most robust in maturity of the master plan developments in this particular video conversation. It has an interesting history I'm not going to go into in this particular video, but as you sit today, you have multiple districts, 14 plus communities, and that's aggressively ongoing. A very, very healthy proportion of those communities are actively building new homes right now. A ton of builders, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that are playing in here. The real kind of crown jewel at the moment that is open to the public is downtown Wellen. So they built their own downtown. They're building like proper downtowns now. They're not just like a Publix on a corner. It's got a huge lake in the middle of it. Several like walking trail areas, ton of eating establishments. You got shopping, dining, the whole shebang. And then of course, 18 minutes away to most communities, you could be in historic downtown Venice and the portal to the beaches and all that kind of stuff. And it really has got everything else you need in close convenience. You got your Ace Hardware, You have your grocery stores, a bunch of schools around, which we'll talk about at the end of the video. But it's one of those areas that feels new. And that's unusual for an older area like Venice. It's just kind of fresh, it feels clean, and there's a ton of walkability at this particular one, especially in the Palmera district, the second district. So it's one of the most golf cart friendly areas in the state of Florida, in addition to the villages. And you just have quick access in and out of US 41 Tamiami Trail to all the stuff that you're gonna wanna have access to. So it really starts to feel when you visit now like it looks like online, and quite lovely overall. All right, second, I'm gonna mix it up. Let's hop to Seaflower. So Seaflower, much smaller and much newer, like I mentioned. If you take the size of it, say like a huge neighborhood on steroids, basically. So at maturity, at least the beginning stages, right? Like the current plan, 4,000 plus residential units. So this will be a mix of like that neighborhood, multiple builder thing we're gonna talk about in a minute. And then obviously some rental presence there as well. You're gonna have like 1,200 plus acres that cover that. They're also gonna have like hotel rooms for visitors and stuff. So you start to see this little town being built. 250, 300 plus hotel rooms, just to give you like the size of kind of those buildings. And then, you know, the biggest thing is 350,000 plus square feet of commercial space set aside for a mix of office, retail, etc. If you look at kind of the maps we show here, they're planning on building this village square. You know, there's rumblings around offering like the mixed use environment for like grocers and dining and shopping, but also being built in a square environment that provides that farmer's market kind of appeal and the event environment. So if you took Waterside, which is very, very new in Lower Lakewood Ranch, and even maybe a mix of like downtown Lakewood Ranch and Waterside, because Waterside's like, you know, big, you could see a line of sight potentially to what this could become that's built out of thin air. And Waterside did not exist on Fruitville a few years ago. I think if you look at the map, you can envision that. You could see kind of like how cool something like this could be. And then you could throw freaking a pebble, if you have a really good arm, to the water. It becomes really, really interesting beyond the normal lakes and these things that we're used to. So that's Seaflower. And lastly, we have North River Ranch. And I think this one's a really cool concept overall. And this might be where the future really goes, because this is a concept that seems like it could be done again. And it's not easily done, but it's not as crazy as like what a Wellen Park is. It's more concise, and I think it makes sense. It's a healthy balance, all that kind of stuff. North River Ranch is headed up by Neal Communities. It's their land and development company. Neal is a builder that's pretty much Southwest Florida focused, but they've built, if you've ever heard of it, Windward, Indigo in Lakewood Ranch, Canoe Creek out in Parrish, Grand Park in Sarasota, Grand Palm in Venice, Aria, Silo, Vincenza, right? They build a lot of these, a lot of neighborhoods that people really like, super coastal aesthetic, but their land and development company doesn't do all of those communities, right? It's like a little bit separate. So their master plan environment, this is a great example of it. And if you're interested in 3H Ranch, east of Sky Ranch area, just for the super insider nerds of the crew watching, then Neal's also heavily involved in that. So if you like this, it could be interesting. Let me rattle this off of what they currently have. So about 6, 7 different neighborhoods playing in this, 3 separate amenity campuses strewn throughout. And what they're self kind of titling is they want it to be one of the most walkable, bikeable communities in the entire state of Florida. They have bike share here, they have trailheads, and it all kind of weaves together in a way that nothing's super far from anything. And this kind of community situated in Parrish, like I kind of mentioned at the beginning, is very poignant, right? Because where you sit here is you're kind of close to Tampa, you're kind of close to Sarasota, you're not on top of anything. But if you take away the need to rush out to stuff, then are you really far from anything? I don't know. I mean, it depends on what you're valuing you need to get to. And I think they do this super well. So if you reach out, we could give you all the rest of the detail, but you have multiple pools, and then you just have like not normal amenity centers. If you've ever looked into Babcock Ranch, they kind of came in vogue when all the storms hit, not the recent ones, unfortunately, but the ones before that hit Fort Myers Beach. Babcock Ranch sits in Punta Gorda, like north of Fort Myers, south of Sarasota. And they have this like solar field that they kind of like didn't lose electricity, didn't lose water. But the way they built the community, they have like autonomous vehicles, they have schools on site, just like North River Ranch. And it's kind of everything in one. You know, there's town centers, there's bars and restaurants right on site. There's co-working centers built in these hub amenity centers, just like North River Ranch. It felt like Pleasantville in an amazing way, if that's your vibe, if that's what you value. It felt safe for the kids, you know, that everybody knew each other. Like, you know, there's autonomous golf carts taking the kids to school basically. And I feel like over time, you could get really romantic about that environment because it felt like that the whole thing was kind of safe and insulated. Again, it has to be for you. I feel like North River Ranch is going to be maybe a more trend-setting version of that because of the timing. So that's what I say about the master plan here. And let's go a little bit more into detail with homes and builders next. Okay, third up, I wanted to share a little bit more detail about the home builders and the home types available. If anything I mentioned so far you're interested in, this will let you dive in a little bit deeper. So starting off with Palmera again, you're gonna have 6 total builders currently announced that are gonna be in the Palmera community at Wellen Park. Now what's interesting about the 6 is 4 of these do not have a meaningful presence already in Wellen Park. They do to the Sarasota landscape for the most part, not Wellen Park specifically, and it's gonna add a lot of texture. So David Weekley, Homes by Town, ICI Homes, MI Homes, Mattamy, and Neal Communities. Now, you've probably heard a lot of these names, but I have never seen the combination of these 6 all in one community. And this is gonna give you everything. It's gonna give you end-to-end spectrum. You're gonna have enough luxury to be meaningful, not full custom, but close to it. You're gonna have single family homes, townhomes, coastal aesthetic, wide floor plans, everything from 40 to 75. It's gonna be really, really interesting mix. And I think just the name of the game is balance. That is something that Wellen Park has not really done yet. I mean, Sarasota has done, but a lot of the early Wellen Park developments were built really like not amenity rich, which this one does, which we'll talk about here in a minute, but also just kind of peacocks. They were like individual builders, boutique environments. If they did custom, it was also boutique. A lot of people were kind of like square peg and a round hole slightly. They liked a little bit, but it wasn't quite right. This one allowed you to jump in and say, okay, I like Palmera. More people will have a better shot at satiating their needs. You're gonna see David Weekley, do their single family products. David Weekley, Neal, Taylor Morrison, I think, interesting like comparisons to each other. David Weekley is also a very much like family style builder. The process they take very seriously. They don't build a million communities at one time. So see them all through Texas and Florida, etc. Homes by Town, you're gonna see that that catamaran series mostly, that, if you've seen Lake House Cove up in Lakewood Ranch, the new Shellstone, a lot of people like this one. I think this is one of the closest, like kind of like a Toll Brothers. If you're not gonna do a custom home, this aesthetic and the build process, it will give you a similar kind of vibe. They'll do the turn 3-car garages, they'll do the wide lots. It's a nice look. ICI, I haven't seen a ton, but it looks like to me ICI is gonna be kind of like the Homes by Town level, or like a stock development on the back end of the Lake Club. The vibe it gives to me from the information I have so far. MI Homes, you're gonna see a townhome product and a single family. So if you've seen Nautique in Lakewood Ranch, Sweetwater, that is MI Homes. Mattamy is gonna be in here as well. It looks like they're gonna do coach homes, etc. So a lot of people enjoy that townhome coach home style, but Mattamy is building all around. They've done Renaissance. They are the master developer for Mattamy is Brightmoor. They're the master developer for the new district of Wellen. And then of course, Neal Communities, I've talked about them in depth this video and the last couple of weeks. But that'll give you another one where you're gonna see just a really nice mix of single families, non-single families, and you're gonna see price points and sizes that cascade accordingly. But it lets you like Palmera and figure it out. Of those builders, as far as sales go, David Weekley, ICI, and MI have released pre-sales. Homes by Town has not yet, but they will have floor plans with the Catamaran series soon. And that's mostly what we have so far. But of course, if you want to keep an ear to the ground, we are as deep in as it gets. Please reach out, and we'd love to get you engaged early and often. All right, number 2 on the list, Seaflower. Not quite as much information out about this yet, but enough to be dangerous. So across those, if we rewind for a second, across those 4,000 plus residential units I mentioned at maturity of the first phase, whatever part of that is not in the rental apartment scheme, you're gonna see a lot of the usual players. Cardell Homes, David Weekley, MI, and Pulte, and then in addition to ISA Homes. I'm not super familiar with them, haven't seen them a ton around the Sarasota area, but it seems to be a decent presence. They're talking a mix of, you start to see the patterns here, but obviously a large single family presence in here. But they're also talking about doing like narrow rear load garages. They're talking about doing some front porch aesthetics in addition to the normal, Florida style coastal appeal. And then some of this is gonna surround the lakes, have access to that village center, and then cascade throughout depending on what they end up doing in totality. And one of the developers are talking about mass appeal. They're looking at the median cost of Western Bradenton, which is that's a shot in the dark, honestly, of both condos and single families. And they're saying how can we appeal to the most people? And you see these same builders over and over. One of the best things we have going for us is that they're new to Seaflower, but they're not new to the area. So if you want to say everything I just said, go up to Nautique with MI Homes and look at how they did their rear load and look at how they oriented their 75% townhome versus single family community in Nautique in Waterside. Right next door to them, Emerald Landing. Look at what David Weekley's done in Emerald Landing And in Payne Park, in urban areas, in their city collections, see what they've done with the homes. You have Pulte that's done products that are more bougie, like Shoreview, but you see products that sit right next to them that are more no frills, and small villas, townhomes, things like that. All of these guys have gone about and done this. David Weekley's in Fox Trace and multiple other areas. They're in Palmera, like I just mentioned. Cardell Homes, if you're not super familiar with them, I think they're a little underrated, but eye of the beholder. They were in Worthington, which is like North Sarasota, and they're also in the back end of Artistry as well. So you could go about, if you say like, okay, interesting example. Let me see if I can guess to be historically right by what they've done in the past. They're not that unique, they're not that different. So to me, all that says is you have a better chance of guessing right. You have a better chance of saying what they're gonna price this at when they come out with all their floor plans and stuff. Does that make sense to you based on how you value this particular geography? Most updates we think we're gonna get in spring 2025, and of course, if we get them sooner, we'll let you know. That's my current view of Seaflower. And lastly, of course, we're gonna circle back to North River Ranch. So here you have 6 major neighborhood footprints that you can work within. We're gonna take 4 to start with, come back to the latter 2. The first 4 are gonna have the best viability and availability for new home construction presence right now if you're an incoming buyer. We have 2 more OGs, 2 on the newer side. So we're gonna kind of go in that order rather. Number 1, Wildleaf is a community that's on the northern side of the general map. This is gonna be pretty much Neal communities across their really common series. Celebration, Cove, Cruise, and Coral is what they're doing in here currently. And what they basically do is they hop widths of lots. Like most of these builders, the reason that they have separate collections could be home type, but in addition to that, it's gonna be the width of the lot. So 35 foot, 45, 52, 62. And this is basically how the square footage sits on a lot. So you walk inside, that open floor plan versus bedroom stacking versus living room being in front of the kitchen. That's not due to the size of the home or the depth, it's due to the width. And you have many, many examples across town with Neal that they do the same thing in all their communities. It's very clear cut. That is Wildleaf. Riverfield, another one that's been around. North River Ranch, of this list that we're talking about today, it's been around a few years. So there's a little bit more that you can see, there's a little bit more that you can do, but there's an evolution also of where the current neighborhoods sit. Riverfield's another one that's gonna introduce multiple builders. You're gonna have Cardell, which we talked about a minute ago, and David Weekley homes here. Riverfield is gonna sit all the way to the southern part of the current map is where the total acreage sits. That's an interesting kind of combo. You'll see Cardell a lot of times just jump on the back of like another builder, like Cardell will join Coulter, or they'll join MI Homes, because it helps kind of spread marketing costs, cost of the land, etc. But I like the multiple builders thing adds to the aesthetic of a neighborhood. It's not gonna look platted out. They're all not gonna look identical to each other. So anytime you add that to me, if it's the right mix of builders, I like most parts about it. Then we have the newer side of things. One of those is called Long Meadow, and that's gonna add a 3 builder combination that's interesting. So first you have Pulte, and they're gonna do both a 40 and a 50 foot wide product here. So again, in many examples you can find it across town about that as well. Cardell Homes is jumping back in this one. And then you have the addition of Homes by West Bay. So Homes by West Bay has really been kind of jumping in the Sarasota conversation a lot more. Like they're up in Star Farms. They're making a presence now in Parrish. They're gonna make a presence down south as well. I mostly saw them in Tampa Bay previous to this, and I mostly saw them in like a normal, Homes by West Bay was the most similar to David Weekley and Neal communities as far as coastal aesthetic. Like even like named all their, it sounded like a Jimmy Buffett kind of song, all their builder models, everything. But then they've come in town and they've done like luxury stuff too. So they kind of compete in between custom and not. So interesting overall though. A lot of people really, really like them. That's Long Meadow, and Long Meadow sits above Wildleaf. So it's on the northern side of the campus. And then finally we have Crescent Creek to round out our like building opportunity now. Cardell Homes, David Weekley to boot. So again, enough variety here. You're gonna have multiple builders to pick from. Now, if I hop back and talk about those other 2 that I left off, the reason I did is one is called Brightwood. That sits right in the middle. That was the very first community built in North River Ranch. It's sold out. You'd have a resale opportunity, but it's pretty big, right? So if you're a couple years late, there is an interesting opportunity from a timing perspective and from an equity perspective if you can catch the right person at the right time that wants to exit for whatever reason. And then last one is called Highview. Highview is being built really close to that really kind of sexy amenity center hub that I mentioned on the northern side. And Highview, my guesstimate of it, I think it's either gonna be like the luxury apartments that are rental only. This should be all rental, Highview. But it's gonna be the rental luxury apartments that surround the Waterside district, Or it could be like the ones around the Wellen Park area where they're gonna go like turnkey, potentially active adult living. I haven't heard that yet, but potentially active adult living, like just turnkey, low maintenance, but basically a build to rent community. I would lean more towards the apartment thing. But it could be interesting as an interim option while you're building a house. It could be interesting if you just don't want to buy a house yet. It could be interesting for a multi-family situation of where I'm 38, I have 2 kids, and what if like grandparents want to rent and not ready to buy yet instead of a villa, something like that. But that's what high view is going to be. That's our 6. Single families, you're gonna have townhomes, you're gonna have villas, it's gonna be the same name of the game, but that is just to start. There is a lot of land that is not taken up yet, so should be interesting. All right, in the 4th and final section for this video, I'm just gonna call other. It's our bonus speed round category of anything else I think would be helpful to share in this context. Number 1 is Palmera, the one community's amenities themselves. The weird part about me choosing one neighborhood and then 2 master plan developments to juxtapose is that I really didn't have a natural place to talk about amenities specifically here. But these are not nothing, especially in the Wellen Park conversation. So Palmera is going to have really nice amenities. I mentioned the 6 builders and all that kind of thing. So you're going to have fitness center, golf simulator. You're going to have a restaurant presence here, which is not a guarantee at communities these days. That's also going to have a golf theme, which is interesting. Lap pools, resort style pools are going to be playgrounds, splash pad, pickleball courts, which is a deal breaker for a lot of people these days, nature trails, etc. The way I would look at this is if you're down there, you're looking at Brightmoor, you're looking at Wellen Park Golf and Country Club with Lennar. Brightmoor is a 55 and up community. Nice amenities, but 55 and up active adult living. Wellen Park has the golf presence there deeded in. If neither one of those is for you, the builder doesn't mix. Palmera really satiates an in-betweener need at the moment. And not every community in Wellen Park has a bunch of amenities. Number 2, golf cart friendliness. This is kind of a simple one I'll breeze over, but all of these communities will be very golf cart friendly. They'll be in the community themselves and also close golf cart friendliness to the town centers, village centers, amenity centers, etc. that are the kind of communal social environments, which a lot of people really, really enjoy. Like I mentioned Wellen Park earlier, but North River Ranch, no different. Seaflower is gonna have a similar thing, kind of inclusive, not on the city streets, all that kind of stuff. Third is schools. If we start with North River Ranch, they have announced here that they're also doing a middle school. It's gonna be called North River Ranch Middle School, straight no chaser. And that's in addition to the elementary school that they already have in the area. So North River Ranch, if you look at it with the high school and the like college and the college preparatory and all of the full life cycle of it, kids could live at home for the full spectrum all the way through without having to leave, which is interesting if you want to keep your family close. Wellen Park, in addition to Sarasota County having the #1 school district in the entire state of Florida when it comes to public schools, you have Taylor Ranch, you have Venice Middle, you have Venice Senior High right on the island. In addition to that, and the Montessori elements and the pre-K and all that goes into that, they also have a college preparatory academy at Wellen Park, it's called. That's tuition-free charter, K through 8, that is now officially open. But as far as Wellen Park inclusive schools that it like kind of owns or manages or whatever, that's the one. And then I'm sure you'll see a very similar thing with Seaflower, especially when it comes to Western Bradenton. That public school district's gonna get interesting as far as like where you sit. I'm sure we'll see that coming. I haven't seen anything super official yet. And then lastly, just a simple one, but fiber optic internet. We're seeing a lot of underground internet being built in, which hence the advantage of having a master plan doing it in advance in areas that are just platted out fully. Included in the HOAs, not only giving speed, but more importantly, reliability. If you work from home or anything like I do a bunch of video, stuff like that, it gets choppy if you're with the random Spectrums of the world or just the random internet that's not based on fiber optic. And then having it bundled in your amenities is not a bad perk as well. So that's it. I'll wrap up with some other helpful information and we will conclude. All right, my friends, that is a wrap for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed the take. If you did, please consider subscribing to the Florida Relocation Guide here and maybe even hitting the bell notification, just the best way to see what's coming next. Like I mentioned in my previous video, if you call it that, we're gonna try to release every Wednesday and Sunday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, and that'll allow me to go more real time, get information out quicker, because it's kind of a unique time right now, especially Q4 out to Q1 with the election, all the stuff going on right now. I think timing is going to matter, not in like a high pressure way, but I do think awareness level of knowing things early and often wouldn't be a bad idea if you're looking to relocate. So that's why we're gonna kind of put out more contextual and more frequent videos based on those 2 days. Subscribing is the best way to know that's happening. If I can assist you, my team and I can assist you in any way in the Florida real estate market, especially in Southwest Florida, Tampa, Sarasota, down to Marco Island and beyond. please let us know. Call, text, email, contact form on the website. We have many free resources on my website, thesunshinestateco.com. I own a brokerage called the Sunshine State Company, and we just have kind of like a headquarters of information on the main website. So there's a lot of passive ways, there's a lot of active ways to get involved. And one of the best things you could do is be speaking with us in the midst of your research. There's not a lot of reason to do it in a silo from each other, in my opinion. So we have really the most knowledgeable team because of the specific way we go about trying to relay the information here, but also a really non-pressure environment in order to talk to someone if you want to talk to someone about real estate. So I'm going to let that rest, but please consider reaching out if you resonate with these videos at all. Our team takes a baton and it's not in a silo. It is very much a collaborative effort. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I appreciate you even taking a minute of your time to consume my content. We'll see you on the next one.